Hello to you all. Welcome back to the Gospel British Isles podcast. Today, I'm also going to be recording for YouTube. Just give a little bit of a visual as well of these podcasts that I'm doing. There'll also be a link there to the podcast, which will be on Spotify and a few other podcast hosts as well. So that'll be good. Today, I'm going to be speaking to you about preaching the gospel in the open air to passers-by. This continues the series I'm doing on street preaching. And the first episode was about what it's like to preach the gospel in the UK. The second episode was about the importance of drawing a crowd. And today, I'm speaking to you about preaching the gospel to passers-by. Now, it is my absolute conviction that that there's a time and a place to simply proclaim the gospel in the hearing of people who are simply passing by. As I've mentioned in the last two episodes, the people of the UK and beyond are incredibly indifferent and apathetic to the gospel. They're interested in other things. They're not interested in the Bible. They're not interested in the Christian faith or religion. They're interested in other things. So the majority of people, when you go out preaching, are simply walking by. They're focused on doing whatever they're doing that day. Now, people can be like that anyway in general, because when they're getting up that day, they have certain tasks that they need to do. If they're going to college, then they're focused on college. If they're going out for lunch, then they're focused on going and getting their lunch, or certain things they want to shop and look for. So people are walking past anyway. In different locations can affect how people move around that town or that city. A busy high street, people can be streaming by at pace. Some towns have little seating areas and people are sitting around, particularly if the sun's out. So it's always very different when you're going out preaching in the open air. But I've found in my own experience that there's a time and place to simply proclaim the gospel. If, like me, you were not a skilled speaker when the Lord called you to go out and proclaim, if you were like me, were not aware of the state of things and how interested people would be, then you would have found yourself just your fire burning to proclaim the gospel. You choose a local place where it might be your local little shopping centre. Could have been a major city. It doesn't matter. You go down there. You want to preach. So you preach. You preach the gospel. And people walk on by. And you do your best to proclaim and preach in their hearing. And you finish your message. And, you pray. And you go on your way. And within yourself that has had an effect. You can tell the way some people looked over, or the odd person that stopped and talked to you. There's a time and place. Cities and towns in Britain vary in footfall, hugely vary in footfall. So, for example, I've calculated that cities and towns in the UK that have 100,000 or more that live in that area, that district, tend to have a decent amount of footfall Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Obviously busier on the Saturday. Towns and cities which have less than 100, you can find yourself going into their towns, going into their city centres or town centres through the week, and there isn't a great deal of people there unless they have a large student population. So I found it that if I want to draw a crowd when preaching, and I've got free time, time to choose, a place that I want to focus on and go, then I would choose one of the bigger cities or bigger towns. I always found that places like Leeds or Huddersfield, Newcastle, Sunderland, Liverpool, Manchester, places like this, you can go in any day within the week and preach, can get the attention of people and draw a crowd. If you've learned how to do that and you're able to do that, then those are the type of places you can do that Monday right the way through to Saturday. But that's not always the case for evangelists and preachers to be able to make that choice. So, for example, if the Lord has specifically called you to focus on maybe a few local towns, could be, I don't know, say Barnsley, Rotherham, Sheffield even. Now, if you are going around those towns, maybe you're going around, say, Wakefield as well, a town like Wakefield. And if you're going around those towns, those are the ones that the Lord's called you to focus on. Except from a Saturday, these towns and these cities don't have a huge amount of footfall. And particularly if the weather's not great, if there's some, light drizzle or anything like that, then the people are really simply just going from one shop to another shop, passing through to get their lunch if they're coming from their college or their university, or if they're going from cafe to cafe or to pick up their fruit and vegetables and so forth, that people are passing by. And I would find that in those type of places, it is best to have a preacher to proclaim the gospel just boldly, loudly, sensibly, clearly in the hearing of people as they're walking by. That you go there regularly and you proclaim the gospel, and people are walking by and the same people are coming back in. They're hearing it. And over time, certain people will respond to you, come and speak to you and the guys with you, and you're able to minister the gospel to them. So there's a time and place to simply proclaim the gospel to passers-by. So new preachers, people that haven't got that experience, they've got the fire in their hearts. They go down to their local places or they find a town, a city to go into. Preach the gospel. God bless you. Preach the gospel in the hearing of people. Pick your verses, quote your verses, use an amplification, proclaim it loudly. It's effective and it's a very important work. If you are a preacher who only preaches to crowds, only seeks to draw a crowd and preach to crowds, God bless you. But I can guarantee that you would find yourself in places, in towns, in certain locations where it would be incredibly difficult to even gather 2 or 3 people to hear you preach. And what I would say is the choice that you would have in that situation would be to leave it all together and not preach at all, or to simply give out the gospel. And I find myself doing that quite often. Because I work full time and because I travel around mainly the north of England in my work, I find myself free and able to visit a large variety of towns and cities and small villages. And I go into them. And I go into them at different, times of the year. And it's always different. And I find myself in these places, and I know within myself that the most effective I can be is to preach to people as they are just walking past, to proclaim the gospel boldly and loudly. Yes, I could see a person, I could engage with them as they're going past a bit and declare the wonderful message of the gospel. Sometimes, however, I'm blessed to find myself maybe on a Saturday close by to Derby or close by to Hull on a lovely bright day. And then I can actively seek to go into that place and purposefully preach in a way that draws a crowd. So there's a time and place for drawing a crowd. There's a time and place for preaching to passers-by. How do we preach to passers-by? What do you do? Well, if I go into a town, say it was Scarborough, I find myself in Scarborough, maybe I'm a little bit tired from me driving and work of that day. I might have a break. I might go and have some lunch and have some time to rest a little bit and to pray. And I look around the town, and it could be some light drizzle, and people are, walking hurriedly up the main street, in and out of shops. And because of the significant amount of footfall and busy footfall, and enough to actually get a hearing of some sort, I would choose to preach to passers-by. I might find a good spot and choose a text, give out the text and just expound it, and just freely preach the gospel in the hearing of the people as they are going by. And it's amazing what you see when you do that. There's always people who will stop, maybe at a distance and maybe for a short while. Quite often I see mainly men standing in doorways and listening to me proclaiming and preaching. And the odd people will stop and engage, and of course you get the heckler and different people, but it's effective. People in the shops all hear the message. People could be using the offices above the shops for businesses, and they are all hearing the message. And those that are walking by are hearing the gospel and seeing a man or a woman proclaiming the message of salvation. So it's very, very important to be open to preach to passers-by. Preaching to passers-by is very much a Christian practice. Jesus says, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. And much of the men and women are walking past. They're walking past in our towns or cities or villages. They're walking past because they're busy going somewhere. But you find yourself in there, in that place, and you can open up your Bible, you can read from it, you can proclaim the wonderful way of salvation. So that's it for today. I just wanted to get this part of the message on street preaching out. Preaching to passers-by. Yes, it's important. Yes, it's definitely a practice that evangelists have and always will engage in. If you are a Christian preacher and you are just starting your journey and that's how you preach, God bless you. Keep it up, keep it going, and trust that the Lord is is using you to get that message out. I preach to passers-by. Many seasoned evangelists preach to passers-by. And it's very much an important Christian practice, and very much an important Christian practice in our day, to go into our towns or cities and villages and herald the gospel in the hearing of those that happen to be there, even if they are walking past, going from one place to another, passing by. That's it for today. I'll be continuing the series on street preaching, and so look out for the next podcast. God bless you.